What's up, guys? Every year, a handful of notable players are released and enter the free agent market. All 32 NFL teams have at least one guy that's extremely overpaid and simply needs a fresh start. You can always expect lots of big-name players getting released, but who exactly should your team prioritize getting rid of the most? I'm Jason Biondo, and today we present one player every NFL team needs to move on from during the 2019 offseason. Don't forget to subscribe to TPS and put on your notifications because we post videos every single day. Every day's a new video, so you have to subscribe. Go do it. Arizona Cardinals, Jermaine Gresham. The entire offseason on Arizona needs a reboot if young quarterback Josh Rosen is to ever develop accordingly. And it should start with releasing tight end Jermaine Gresham, who signed a 4-year contract worth $28 million. Why the Cardinals overpaid for a guy who puts up like 300 receiving yards a season is anyone's guess. He's not effective in any way, and Arizona needs to clear cap space so they can sign other free agents in the offseason. Releasing or trading him is one of the easiest decisions this front office will ever make. Atlanta Falcons, DESMOND TRUFANT. After losing in Super Bowl 52, the Atlanta Falcons locked up star corner DESMOND TRUFANT to a $69 million extension. The problem is that TRUFANT just hasn't been able to regain that Super Bowl form, and he's become an overpaid commodity in Atlanta. The Falcons eventually had to pay big bucks to Keanu Neal and Deion Jones. Julio Jones needs a monster extension, one that will take up a big chunk of their cap space. Atlanta should look to trade or release TRUFANT. He's still an effective corner, but simply not good enough to carry so much of their cap. This would be a salary dumping move and nothing more. Baltimore Ravens, Joe Flacco. Well, this is an easy one. It's pretty much a done deal that the Ravens will move on from Super Bowl 47 champion and MVP. 2019 marks Joe Flacco's age 34 season. He's dealt with back and hip injuries, and it's clearly affected his playing on the field. Oh, and some guy named Lamar Jackson is doing a fine job leading the Baltimore offense. They have their new franchise QB to build around. The only question is if Flacco will be traded or released. But there's absolutely no doubting that the Ravens will be moving on from him after 11 seasons. Buffalo Bills, LeSean McCoy. The idea of releasing a perennial Pro Bowl running back sounds crazy, but it's not. The Bills are in full-scale rebuilding mode and shouldn't keep McCoy for a variety of reasons. Firstly, a running back in his 30s will decline at any time. The Bills would be better off finding a new young halfback to build around. Second, McCoy's contract runs up after the 2019 season. Why extend a guy who could very well be out of the NFL within 3 years? The Bills are better off trading McCoy for a mid to late round pick. It won't be hard. Rumors have tied him to rejoining the Philadelphia Eagles, and that'll make sense for both teams. But the point is that the Bills should move on from McCoy and find younger guys to help build around quarterback Josh Allen. Carolina Panthers, Torrey Smith. The Panthers have managed their cap space situation pretty well, and there aren't too many overpaid, underachieving guys that need to go. That being said, Carolina should move out wide receiver Torrey Smith, whom they acquired from Philly in the 2018 offseason deal. The two-time Super Bowl champion wasn't able to fit in Carolina's offense, even though the idea of him playing alongside Cam Newton seemed intriguing at the time. Truth be told, the entire Carolina receiving corps should be overhauled. Releasing or trading Smith would be a good starting point. The speedy wideout could use a new home too. Chicago Bears, Kevin White. The Bears drafted wide receiver Kevin White with the 7th overall pick in 2015, but it never panned out. That's okay, Chicago. Just cut your losses and move on. It's that easy. White unfortunately couldn't stay healthy and missed all of 2015, most of 2016, and all but one game in 2017. He was largely unproductive in 2018, and it's worth noting that Chicago declined the 5th-year option on White's contract. White just couldn't stay healthy for the Bears. Mitch Trubisky has lots of great playmakers around him, so moving on from White is an easy decision here. Cincinnati Bengals, Andy Dalton. Bengals fans won't like this entry, but do consider the following. The Browns are officially better than the Bengals now. The Steelers and Ravens are miles ahead of the Bengals. The Bengals haven't won a playoff game since 1990. I can't believe that. They've missed the playoffs in 3 straight years now. Andy Dalton is under contract until 2020. And the Bengals are sure this is the guy they want to roll with in the long run? Nope. It's time to restart entirely. Whether it's trading or releasing Dalton, the Bengals need to move on from him. He's above average at best, not elite. Dalton has had almost a decade to show he's a franchise superstar. It hasn't worked out. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. In keeping Dalton, the Bengals are saying they're happy to stay in the AFC North basement for the long run. What kind of team would want that? Let Dalton go, find a new quarterback. This entire franchise needs an overhaul. Make it happen. Cleveland Browns, Jamie Collins. Well, that didn't work out. Browns fans were excited when they acquired the athletic and versatile linebacker in a 2016 trade with the New England Patriots. Jamie Collins signed a 4-year, $50 million extension with the Browns, but it's completely blown up in their faces. The Browns defense is championship caliber now, thanks to the arrivals of Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward. Cleveland shouldn't be keeping Collins around, given his mighty struggles and very expensive salary. He signed through 2020. It's a no-brainer of a decision to release or trade Collins, and they can find a cheaper replacement via the draft or free agency. Dallas Cowboys Sean Lee. A two-time Pro Bowler, linebacker Sean Lee really could have been a franchise-changing player if he wasn't injured so much. Alas, Lee has never been able to stay healthy, and even though the Dallas defense is among the best in the NFL right now, Lee hasn't played a huge role in that. Lee is a free agent after the 2019 season. Dallas eventually has to hand out monster extensions to Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, Amari Cooper, and DeMarcus Lawrence. That's kind of a lot of money they have to pony up soon. So yeah, cutting Lee to save more cap space is an easy call for Dallas. Lee himself would probably love a fresh start too. Denver Broncos, Case Keenum. Now I know it's only been 1 year. The Broncos quarterback carousel will continue. John Elway's decision to give Case Keenum a 2-year deal worth $36 million really flopped here. Not that we shouldn't be surprised. The Broncos haven't had a half-decent quarterback since Peyton Manning retired in 2016. Once again, Elway needs to find a new quarterback. Release Keenum and either draft a guy or pursue somebody like Nick Foles or Joe Flacco. Either way, it's time for Denver to move on. Detroit Lions, Theo Riddick. The Lions have actually managed their cap situation well. There simply aren't any veteran players that are vastly overpaid. That being said, the emergence of Kerryon Johnson leaves veteran running back Theo Riddick expendable. Riddick is signed through 2019, and though he's cheap, the Lions may as well replace him with a more reliable secondary back. Johnson is the starter from here on out, so it makes sense to move on from Riddick and add a better number 2 back in free agency. Just an idea. Green Bay Packers, Jimmy Graham. The Packers don't spend much in free agency, but they rewarded Pro Bowl tight end Jimmy Graham with a 3-year, $30 million contract in the 2018 offseason. The hope was that Graham would fit in nicely with Aaron Rodgers and help the latter regain his MVP form. Well, as you can tell, that didn't happen. The Packers are changing up the coaching staff, and reinforcements are needed on offense. It's clear Graham isn't going to work in Green Bay's passing game, so they should look to move him out for a mid to late round pick. If there aren't any takers, releasing Graham is the only other option. But no matter what it takes, the Packers need to cut their losses and move on from Graham. Houston Texans, Lamar Miller. Thanks to Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins, the Houston Texans have one of the best passing games in the league. Though Lamar Miller initially succeeded in Houston, he's no longer producing like a true number 1 running back. Just imagine how better this offense could be with a dynamic running back. Le'Veon Bell, anyone? It's a pretty good idea. Miller is only signed for another year, so the Texans shouldn't hesitate to release him. The dead cap money would be extremely minimal. Indianapolis Colts, Jabal Sheard. We didn't really want to put him on here. He's been productive on Indy's defense. But listen guys, this team will have over $100 million in cap space. Their key players are either paid at a reasonable price or are on their rookie deals. But could the Colts decide to release Sheard in order to free up even more cap space? I mean, they could sign Le'Veon Bell, Earl Thomas, and another good player on defense. This isn't a knock against him, there just aren't any other players in the Colts that are overpaid and should be cut. Jacksonville Jaguars, Blake Bortles. Yeah, pretty much. If you don't agree with this one, you shouldn't be watching football. After reaching the AFC Championship game in 2017, the Jaguars gave Blake Bortles a head-scratching 3-year extension. Bortles had an awful season and was benched in favor of Cody Kessler numerous times. The Jaguars can't keep wasting this elite defensive unit they took years to build up, nor the talents of Leonard Fournette. Bortles had his chance to be a franchise quarterback. He failed. It's time to get Nick Foles or Joe Flacco, or somebody in the draft. Anybody but Bortles. Kansas City Chiefs, Sammy Watkins. The Kansas City Chiefs gave the speedy wideout a 3-year, $48 million deal in the offseason. It backfired big time as Watkins failed to produce much despite an MVP season from Patrick Mahomes. KC has more than enough weapons for Mahomes, including Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Releasing Watkins this offseason would cost a lot in dead money, but the Chiefs might be able to find a taker via trade. Perhaps they package Watkins with a mid-round pick. A handful of teams should be willing to take his last 2 years. And if the Chiefs can find a taker, they ought to get out of his hefty contract, especially with major extensions looming from Mahomes and Hill. Los Angeles Rams, Ndamukong Suh. The Los Angeles Rams gave Ndamukong Suh a low-risk 1-year deal worth $14 million. And though he had a productive year playing alongside Aaron Donald, it doesn't make sense for the Rams to give him a new contract. Jared Goff is in line for a huge extension soon, while Aaron Donald and Brandon Cook's monster deals kick in when 2019 rolls around. The Rams cannot afford to pay Suh long term, nor should they think about investing in a guy that's in his 30s, especially considering his declining production. The Rams got lots out of Suh, but sometimes you just have to avoid the temptation. This isn't somebody they should look to keep in 2019. Los Angeles Chargers, Antonio Gates. If anything, the Chargers should do everything they can to keep the bulk of this roster together. This is the most talented team they've had in years. The star players are signed long term, while other talents are still playing out their rookie deals. But it's time to move on from tight end Antonio Gates, who's been well past his prime for a few years now. It may made sense to keep Gates after Hunter Henry was lost with a torn ACL, but with the latter returning in 2019 and guys like Mike Williams looking for bigger roles, the Chargers need to kindly thank Gates for his services and move on. Miami Dolphins Ryan Tannehill. To be fair, Tannehill did play better than many expected when the Dolphins drafted him with their first pick in 2012, but there's really no reason for Miami to retain Tannehill for another year. Let's consider some main points. He's mediocre at best. One playoff year in 7 seasons. Always injured. Missed large chunks of 2016 and 2018 and all of 2017. Very overpaid. Dolphins are very mediocre. The Dolphins will be a playoff bubble team if they keep Tannehill and the rest of his roster together. The front office needs to start rebuilding. They can chase Nick Foles or Teddy Bridgewater, or they can draft somebody. Either or. But the Dolphins have to start all over. And the first order of business is to cut Tannehill and find a new signal caller. Minnesota Vikings Sheldon Richardson. Now we'd like to put Kirk Cousins on this list, but the Vikings can't do it, since every penny of his $84 million contract is guaranteed. God, that sucks. Other than that, there aren't many guys the Vikings need to get rid of. That being said, they shouldn't bother overpaying to retain defensive tackle Sheldon Richardson, who has produced nicely under his 1-year deal. The Vikings have lots of other stars to pay up in the near future, and Richardson isn't exactly playing at a Pro Bowl level. Letting him walk in free agency might not be an easy choice, but they ought to do it. I mean, there are other offseason priorities in many. New England Patriots, Dwayne Allen. Really? I thought they should have got rid of Tom Brady. He's not really doing too well, don't you guys think? That was just a joke. When the Patriots traded for Dwayne Allen in the offseason, he was supposed to be a fine compliment to Rob Gronkowski, but the former Clemson product hasn't found his footing in the New England offense. And it'd be a surprise if Bill Belichick decided to keep him on. Allen is only signed through 2019. Why would the Patriots bother to keep him if the production isn't there? Expect him to get traded or released in the offseason. New Orleans Saints, Ted Ginn Jr. It's simple. The Saints have their best players signed at good prices. Or the top guys like Marshawn Lattimore and Alvin Kamara are still on their rookie deals. There aren't any bad contracts here. That being said, the Saints should probably release veteran wideout Ted Ginn Jr. and they shouldn't bother paying his $2.5 million salary for 2019. The offense is more than good enough with Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, and Kamara leading the way. Other than that, there aren't any notable players that they should think about releasing. New York Giants, Eli Manning. Alrighty, Manning is nearing his 40s. It's way past his prime. He takes up too much cap space, and oh yeah, did we mention, the Giants are awful. Well, forgive them for drafting running back sensation Saquon Barkley over Eli's potential successor. But after a pathetic 2018 season, it's time for the Giants to move on from Eli. No ifs, ands, or buts. Just move on already and let Manning try to find a competitive team where he can finish out his career. New York Jets, Kelvin Beachum. The Jets figure to have over $100 million in cap space, but that whole offensive line needs some changes. That's why it should be an easy decision to release veteran tackle Kelvin Beachum, who really didn't perform very well in 2018. Sam Darnold won't develop accordingly if the Jets don't fix up his O-line. They should release Beachum and clear the final year of his contract. Then they should use some of that money to find other talents in free agency. Lots of good offensive linemen will be on the market. Oakland Raiders, Jordy Nelson. Well, John Gruden sure messed up his first year back as head coach and GM of the Raiders. Who trades Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper, then signs a past his prime wideout in Jordy Nelson to a 2-year deal worth $15 million? Nelson wasn't bad by any means, but not productive enough to justify his contract. The Raiders may as well cut Nelson and start rebuilding that whole offense around Derek Carr, or whoever they choose to stick with at quarterback. He's well past his prime and doesn't need to be part of this long-term rebuild. Philadelphia Eagles, Michael Bennett. The cap-strapped Eagles will have to let a handful of notable players go in free agency, including Super Bowl 52 hero and MVP Nick Foles. The Eagles didn't get much out of the Pro Bowl pass rusher Michael Bennett, and it probably makes sense to move on from the aging product. Bennett is signed through 2020, but the Eagles may as well release him and save every penny they can. Otherwise, keeping Bennett will mean letting more important players leave via free agency instead. Pittsburgh Steelers, Morgan Burnett. The Steelers rarely spend big bucks in free agency, but they gave veteran safety Morgan Burnett a 3-year deal worth $14.5 million in 2018. Too much? Not worth it? Nah, not at all. Pittsburgh has a great defense in place, led by young pass rushing phenomenon TJ Watt. But the strong safety hasn't panned out, and he's been a weak link in their secondary. The front office needs to realize its mistakes and just release Burnett. I mean, it would save him a bit of much-needed cap space. San Francisco 49ers, CJ Beathard. Jimmy Garoppolo is undoubtedly the starter when the 49ers take the field in 2019. Backup Nick Mullins filled in nicely for Jimmy G, and he's a good insurance option for Kyle Shanahan. That leaves the other guy, the guy who did really bad. The 49ers have 2 very good quarterbacks that could lead them to the playoffs in 2019, though they obviously hope it's Garoppolo. Thus, releasing or trading Beathard is a move that requires no thinking at all. Let the guy find a new home and roll with Garoppolo and Mullins for the next season. Seattle Seahawks, Sebastian Janikowski. The main goal is for Seattle to give Russell Wilson that long-term extension. It wouldn't hurt to give a new deal to Pro Bowl linebacker Bobby Wagner either. Other than that, the Seahawks don't need to consider cutting any of their other notable players. The veteran guys are paid reasonably, but kicker Sebastian Janikowski has been way too inconsistent, and he's a free agent in 2019. The Seahawks can find a better kicker at an equally cheap price. Janikowski isn't the Pro Bowler we all knew and love in Oakland. There are more reliable options out there. Finding a good replacement for Janikowski should be one of John Schneider's main goals in the offseason. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Deshaun Jackson. Even though D-Jax has been a great playmaker for the Bucs, it's been said that he wants out of Tampa Bay. They have no problem finding a taker for the lightning-fast wideout. He's only got a handful of years left, and the Bucs need to rebuild on both sides of the ball. Moving out disgruntled Jackson for an additional pick is probably the way to go here. He certainly won't re-sign after his deal runs out in 2019. They may as well get something for him. I mean, who wants to keep an unhappy player around? Tennessee Titans, Derek Morgan. The Titans should completely resist temptation to give this aging linebacker a new deal. They've built an excellent defense with young and speedy playmakers. Morgan isn't either. Marcus Mariota and Derrick Henry will command major raises soon. The Titans are slowly building up a true Super Bowl contender. Now is not the time to overpay to keep fading assets. Let Morgan go elsewhere and continue building with the great core you have now. Washington Redskins, Jordan Reed. The Redskins would have likely won the NFC East if Alex Smith wasn't lost for the second half of the season. Well, if he stays healthy, they'll remain a playoff contender. The Redskins shouldn't make too many drastic changes to this roster. However, they really do need to release tight end Jordan Reed, who's under contract until 2021. He hasn't been very good since that 952-yard, 11-touchdown season. Releasing him this offseason won't account for that much in dead money, and they ought to save all the cap space they can. It would be a shock if Washington didn't release Reed. Which player do you want your favorite NFL team to move on from? Join us in the comment section below. Make sure to follow myself and Total Pro Sports on social media. We post great content all the time. Go follow us. Instagram, Twitter, go check it out at least. At least go check out our profiles, give it a look, and if you like it, give us a follow. If not, don't follow us. It's okay. We still appreciate you. You're great. If you like this video, give it a like. Takes one click right down below, right there. I know you're looking at it, just click it. If this is your first time around TPS, make sure to subscribe because we post videos every single day. Every day. That's right. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Jason Biondo, and I'll see you next time.
My knee.